What my amendment would do is remove the provisions that allow a paramilitary police force to be created and to be deployed at the will of the governor into any part of the state. And the thing is, they won't even have the full amount of training that a normal civilian law enforcement officer would have, because normally you have to go through and graduate from the police academy. But in this bill, it just says that the National Guard should get them some training on law enforcement. It doesn't require them to have the same training as any other civilian law enforcement officer. And what makes this so dangerous is you might argue, oh, we need this in case there's some kind of big natural disaster, some kind of terrorist attack, some like huge thing. We got to deploy someplace to protect people. But essentially, the bill says that the governor can deploy this military police force and have them exercise civilian police powers, which includes making arrests, conducting search and seizure of person and property. They can carry a firearm, and they can exercise other police powers with respect to the enforcement of Indiana law. So basically, they get to do the whole deal. So you're going to have a military force implementing civilian laws, enforcing civilian laws. And when do you get to have this come to either the entire state or some particular part of the state? Well, it says under IC 10-1677. That's what gives the governor the authority to take this military police force, convert it to some kind of occupying civilian authority, and deploy it at any other time the governor considers necessary. So whenever the governor, and the governor alone, decides it is necessary to take this military police force, impose it upon a community, and have it enforce civilian laws, enforce the laws against civilians, anytime he thinks it's necessary. And you know what? I don't have to make up imaginary scenarios. All you got to do is look at Minneapolis, Minnesota. What happens when you take basically a paramilitary force and you impose it upon a community? What do you get? You get mothers shot point blank in the head. What do you get? You get a lawful gun owner shot in the back, and then an extra, 6 or 7 more just for good measure. And then you have people suggested, and this is for those of you in this room who consider yourself conservatives, you get suggestions that if you lawfully carry a handgun, you're a candidate to get shot just because you have that handgun. Not that you have to be brandishing it or threatening anybody, just by having one. This external paramilitary force gets to decide you're a threat and maybe just kill you. We've seen the horrible, terrible tragedy that occurs when you send an ill-trained external force into a community. And if you're somebody who's concerned about government power, who thinks that less government is better than more government, why in God's name would you vote for a bill that gives this kind of power to the governor?
To tell you about 2 wild bills that passed out of the House yesterday. The first, House Bill 1333, was called Land Use Development, but there was a provision in there that allows any kind of development, any kind, a landfill, a smelting plant, a data center, and no matter what the municipality says, as long as it's going on a certain kind of farmland, they can bring that into your community. You have absolutely no say. We thought it was a mistake in the drafting of the bill because there was an amendment to fix it, but that amendment never got called down, and then kind of in a shock to us, the author called it down for final passage anyway. We got the author to admit on the House floor that yes, this bill would allow any kind of development, no matter how noxious, no matter how terrible, to be put onto this farmland, and the local unit of government and the people have absolutely no say. It was really kind of jarring. And what might be even worse is that then the majority leader for the Republicans gets up and says, yeah, we know this is a bad bill, this provision is terrible, but we'll probably fix it in the Senate, so please pass it anyway. That was literally their argument, and it passed with, I think, 55 votes. Remember, Republicans have 70 votes, so it barely squeaked through. I also want to tell you about House Bill 1417. This would shield big corporations and billionaires and insurance companies from having to pay their own attorney's fees, right? So the way it works now in the United States, and this has been this way for hundreds of years, if you sue somebody, everybody pays their own attorney's fees, no matter who wins and who loses. This kind of changes it in a really dramatic way. So it essentially says that, say for example, you get into a car accident and the other party's insurance company is going to pick up the tab. If they make you an offer, no matter if it's a lowball offer, if you don't take it and you go on to win the case, but you win less than that offer, now you have to pay their attorney's fees. And we got, again, the author to admit on the floor, this is an effort to kind of restrict people's desire to sue when something happens to them. So, again, it's all for the billionaires, it's all for the corporations, nothing for normal people in these cases. And we made a good point. We said, remember that opioid settlement where we the people said, we know that the opioid companies got us addicted to these things and the courts agreed? Well, under this system, we would be much less likely to be inclined to sue for something like that. And that is by design. They said it on House floor. That got out of the House with just 61 votes. So these are a couple of really bad bills that have gone to the Senate, but you needed to know about them because they're particularly egregious.